up, my peeps? How's it going? We're gonna be talking about Guild Wars 2 Path of Fire versus Guild Wars 2 Heart of Thorns today. And yeah, basically, Guild Wars 2 came out a few years ago, and then an expansion was released, which was Heart of Thorns. And then later on, quite recently actually, Path of Fire was released. So, this video we're gonna cover the differences between them, going through the story, the maps, the masteries, the specializations, and then like little specific things that are slightly different between them. So yeah, thanks very much for joining, and I hope you enjoyed the video. So in terms of story, I think it's important to notice that the story does progress from the storyline of the basic game onto the Heart of Thorns, and then onto the Path of Fire. Obviously, with the living story, the living world stories in the middle. But if you're not too keen on, the lore and so on, that's not gonna matter too much. If you don't mind spoilers and so on, you can do them in whatever order you want. However, if you do want to have a concise story that has progression and it leads on to the next bit of the story, then I would probably recommend you start off with the original game, then work your way through Heart of Thorns, and then only after you start the Path of Fire, because obviously there's certain things that happen in Path of Fire that mention past events and stuff that happened when you were playing Heart of Thorns, and even the Living World Season 1, 2, 3. So keep that in mind if you want to just hop on to Path of Fire right away. The story might be a bit strange because you didn't do the stuff that it says you did. In any case, I'm pretty sure you could just skip on to each one of these stories, and it won't make too much of a difference if you don't care too much about the story element of it, the lore, because yeah, they kind of fill you in on the important events. Again, why I was saying that if you don't like spoilers, probably do them in order. But in any case, in terms of story, I really enjoyed the story in the original one, and it got even better in Heart of Thorns. And from what I've played of Path of Fire, it keeps on being really epic and so on. And without spoiling too much, Heart of Thorns basically leads you on this quest to kill an elder dragon, whereas the Path of Fire leads you on a quest to destroy the God of War. So they're slightly different, but both of them really, really epic from what I've played so far. I've completed all of the Heart of Thorns storyline, but I have not completed all of the Path of Fire storyline, so I can't really say for sure whether one's better than the other. But from what I played, the story missions are really, really enjoyable in Path of Fire. They were also really enjoyable in Heart of Thorns, but I personally prefer where the story is leading in Path of Fire. But I guess that's kind of like personal preference and so on. So that's that. So in terms of maps, I think you'll find a big difference between the Heart of Thorns maps and the Path of Fire maps. The Heart of Thorns maps are well more condensed and basically vertical mazes. There are these vertical puzzles that you have to find your way and explore, and it really brings out that interaction with the map, with the exploration, because you need to look at the map to see, oh look, I'm gonna go over there so that I can jump onto that ledge, so that I can then glide over that valley, so on and so forth, and it really makes the exploration enjoyable. However, compared to Path of Fire, you will notice that they're a lot more closed in and they're harder to traverse, and I really find the Heart of Thorns maps very, very hazardous. Like, anything will kill you, both in the map and in terms of the mobs in there. And yeah, it's a matter of personal preference. In the Path of Fire maps, I really found them a lot more enjoyable personally, because I don't like that verticality as much, but you will still find a lot of verticality elements, especially due to the Springer mount that makes you have to jump over certain things, and you still have all sorts of crevices to explore with hidden cities. It's just, they're both beautiful, the maps, but I find Path of Fire to be even more, just more beautiful and amazing. It's just ridiculous, those maps. They did a really, really good job. I think that's one of the things that I got impressed the most. There's all sorts of stunning views, cities, and you might expect to see, oh look, desert, that's gonna be very empty. But that's not the case. All sorts of different things hidden about. You might be going about in a snowy mountain and find there's this crevice with a lava pit inside a city. It's just amazing and ridiculous and epic, and I love it. It's great. Both maps are really good in terms of exploration and making you really think about where you're going before you just set off. And in terms of exploration, both maps are amazing. In Heart of Thorns, you get the glider to glide about, and it's amazing to glide about and then see all these trees and all sorts of places that look great. And in Path of Fire with the mounts, it's equally, if not even better, to traverse. It's just so rewarding to traverse those maps. So in that sense, I think the maps really shine out, both in Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire. And I think it comes down to personal preference, whether you prefer a heavier element of verticality or whether you prefer a heavier element of openness. I think that'll come down to your choice, really. In terms of mobs, Heart of Thorns mobs tend to be more like zombified plant creatures, like dogs that have like a flower in their face, and all sorts of creatures that have been taken over by the Dragon Mortarmoth. So that you can expect to see more plant-based or zombified plant creatures about. But you might also see other types of creatures like giant dinosaur-like creatures like bone breakers and so on and so forth. And in that sense, I think the mobs, they're very varied in both of them. In Path of Fire, you might expect to see more of Balthazar's Fire Legion or Flame Legion soldiers, which are basically flame armors. But you also see all sorts of other things about, depending on which region of the map you're in. You might see some Khal Joko's army that are more like undead creatures, and you will see some more crystal-like creatures that, without spoiling too much, yeah, it's just they do manage to put a lot of variety into the mobs as well as the maps, and they do depend on the region of the map you're in, so that kind of brings it all together really nicely, and you will not find the mobs to be just constantly repetitive the same thing. You might even find some giant hydras spewing out fire and killing you, but you might find some cute little mushrooms that are equally, if not even more annoying to deal with than the like other giant creatures you find. But yeah, in both of them, I think they did a really good job with the mobs. They don't feel like they're repetitive at all, and even in the storyline, you'll find like bosses that are just really cool. So yeah, in terms of map events, I think they did a really good job with the events in both expansions. You see a lot more events that require more cooperation between people in the map, and you'll find yourself using the map chat a lot more in order to ask people for help or to group up and find a nice group, especially in the Invasion of Tarir event that you can find in the Heart of Thorns. I think that is a great example of ArenaNet trying to bring this multiplayer element into their MMO game, which is what makes most sense. You know, in raids you'll find the maximum group size of 10, in fractals and in dungeons you'll find a max group size of 5, which is a nice multiplayer experience. However, with these gigantic map events, also like you see in Tyria, but even more like how you find them in Heart of Thorns and even Path of Fire, you'll see people really drawing in together and helping each other out, and that cooperative spirit is a lot more present. For example, the invasion of Tarierism, it's literally impossible to do it alone, because you need to invade this city from 4 different locations, so you need 4 different groups to be working together simultaneously for the same purpose. And I think that really draws an amazing element to the game, because that's what it is. It's a multiplayer game, and that's what you want to be doing. I think trying to play through the game alone is going to just set yourself into a harder environment, because what it is, it's trying to get you to interact with other players as well as with the map and the lore and so on. So in that sense, kudos ArenaNet, you did a really good job with the events, and I'm looking forward to more events to be added into the Path of Fire as well, and to see more of them, because obviously I still have a lot of things to explore in Path of Fire. So in terms of Masteries, this is where you're probably going to notice the biggest difference between Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire. When you reach level 80, you start unlocking these Masteries that allow you your account, so any character you create level 1 will also have these perks, these Mastery perks, but in any case, once you reach level 80, you can start leveling up your Masteries. So you get the Central Tyria Masteries, you get the Heart of Thorns Masteries, and you get the Path of Fire Masteries. I believe you can unlock any of the Tyria Masteries by just having one of the expansions, but if you know for sure, comment down below, because obviously I bought first the Heart of Thorns and then I bought the Path of Fire, so I don't really know if you get these Masteries by just having the Path of Fire. So if you do know, comment down below so you can help other people and so on. But in any case, you get the Central Tyria Masteries, which are basically just quality of life masteries, like automatically picking up loot, being faster when you're going through cities, and so on and so forth. And then you get the Heart of Thorns masteries, which basically give you gliding, which is definitely one of the nicest ones to have. They also, you start unlocking like jumping on mushrooms, adrenal mushrooms, and things like that to help you traverse through the map. And you also pick up some languages and so on of the local tribes of the regions of Heart of Thorns that allow you to interact with some of the vendors around there to pick up specific items and to get all those legendary crafting items and so on that you might need for the legendary weapons. And on the other hand, all of the mastery points so far, at least in Path of Fire, have been related to your mount. So basically you get a set of mastery points for your raptor, you get a set of mastery points for your springer, you get a set of mastery points for your skimmer, and a set of mastery points for your jackal. So every time you unlock another mastery point, you'll either improve their special movement ability, like the chasm jumping, the vertical double jump for the springer, the higher jump for the skimmer, or the multiple jumps for the jackal. And yeah, basically these will revolve around your mounts basically as you progress throughout these mastery points. So that's the biggest difference between them. And I do love the fact that you can really just use them from level 1, because that makes the whole experience of the game a lot nicer from there on. In terms of specializations, each expansion added their new set of elite specializations to all of the classes. So depending on what you play, have a look at them and see what suits you best, because they're slightly different for each one of the professions. But for example, for the Guardian, the Heart of Thorns added the Dragon Hunter, whereas Path of Fire added the Firebrand. So Dragon Hunter grants access to longbows and traps. Active effects of Dragon Hunter's virtues gain a more physical presence in the world. And whereas the Path of Fire added the Firebrand, which grants access to axes and mantras, where virtues become tomes. So the Revenant, which is a class that requires you to own the Heart of Thorns, they also added slightly different elite specializations depending on the expansion. So you do need the Path of Fire, for example, for the Renegade, but in this case you need both the Path of Fire and the Heart of Thorns so that you can also unlock the Revenant class itself. In any case, for the Revenant, they added the Herald, which grants access to shields and legendary dragon stance, in addition to Facet of Nature, which can be used at any time. Heralds focus on defense and supporting allies with various boons. With the Path of Fire expansion, the Renegades gain the ability to wield short bows and channel whatever how that's called, power in battle, drawing upon her spirit to summon members of her warband. The warrior class, they've added the Berserker in Heart of Thorns, and they added the Spellbreaker in Path of Fire. The Berserker grants access to Torture's rage skills in Berserk mode, which allows the use of Primal Burst skills. Berserkers focus on fast attacks, adrenaline gain, and burning damage. Whereas the Spellbreaker grants access to daggers and meditation, Spellbreakers can use their adrenaline to perform a full counter, absorbing the next attack against them and damaging surrounding foes. The Engineer, they added the Scrapper and the Scrapper in the Heart of Thorns and the Hollowsmith in the Path of Fire expansion, and the Scrapper grants access to hammers, gyro skills, and function gyro to interact with players at a range to revive allies or finish enemies. Scrappers focus on reducing incoming damage, supporting allies, and improving super speed and lightning fields. The Hollowsmith grants access to swords and exceed skills. Use skills that project light into semi-solid form. Photon Forge mode generates heat as skills are used, causing damage to themselves but also increasing utility skill damage. Now, the Hollowsmith is one I'm really looking forward to trying because basically you get a sweet lightsaber. The Ranger, they're quite different as well. The Druid grants access, the Druid, which was added in the Heart of Thorns expansion, grants access to staves, glyphs, and celestial avatar, which changes your weapon skills and the effect of your equipped glyphs while active. Druids have a heavy focus on team support and healing. The Soul Beast, added on the Path of Fire expansion, grants main hand use of daggers. The Soul Beast is able to unite with animal spirits and enter stances to take on the aspect of wild creatures. The Merge allows use of unique animal and archetype abilities. The Thief added the Daredevil in the Heart of Thorns expansion, and the Deadeye was added in the Path of Fire expansion. The Daredevil grants access to melee staves and physical skills. Endurance pool is increased and dodging is enhanced with additional effects. The Deadeye gains ability to use rifles, marking targets, increases effects of sniping, and can use shadow magic to cast cantrips that gain bonuses when used against marked targets or as malice increases. In the Elementalist, they added the Tempest in the Heart of Thorns expansion, and they added the Weaver in the Path of Fire expansion. The Tempest grants access to Warhorns and offensive shouts, and Tempest can overload their attunements for powerful channeling abilities after staying in an attunement for a certain amount of time. The Weaver gains the ability to use swords and stances, wields 2 attunements at once, combining both elements in dual attacks, and switches between elements by changing stances. The Mesmer, they added the Chronomancer in the Heart of Thorns expansion and the Mirage in the Path of Fire expansion. So the Chronomancer grants access to shields, wells, and the new Shatter skill. Continuum Split. Chronomancers focus on manipulating time and can provide a unique effect called Alacrity, which reduces skill recharge. Mirage gain ability to use Axes and Deceptions. Taps into magic of the Crystal Desert to deceive enemies and create constructs that explode when touched. Can create Mirage cloaks to avoid enemy attacks without dodging. Finally, we have the Necromancer, which they added the Reaper in the Heart of Thorns expansion, and they added the Scourge in the Path of Fire expansion. The Reaper grants access to great swords and offensive shout. Death Shroud is replaced by Reaper's Shroud, which has a heavier focus on melee combat. The Scourge gain ability to wield torches and punishment skills. Death Shroud is replaced with the ability to raise sand shades that shield allies and attack foes. cast spells that grant allies might and barrier, while tormently ripping boons from enemies. So these are the elite specializations, and once again, go check them out and see what they do specifically to your class or profession, and see which one suits you best. Because personally, for example, I was trying out the Elementalist, and for PvP I really prefer the Tempest, like the old Oromancer build, but I have been enjoying the Weaver in PvE because of all the CC mixed with the damage abilities. They work out really nicely together. You can have, for example, fire on, so you can burst them down, while having, like, say, water that heals you and at the same time provides a nice amount of crowd control that you can slow down enemies. Or even with air, for example, you can put down a stun wall over, for example, your area of effect, fire. So that's a really good combo over there. And once again, yeah, just check them out for your specific profession and see what suits you best. Another big difference between Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire is that Heart of Thorns added the class Revenant, which is only available to be played if you do own the Heart of Thorns expansion. So if you do want to play that specific class, yeah, make sure you do get the Heart of Thorns. In terms of other specific differences, you have fractals, raids, and guild halls. I know for a fact that guild halls, if you want to unlock them specifically yourself for your guild, you will need the expansion in order to do so, but as long as there's a guild member that has the expansion, you'll be able to do it and then access the specific place. However, in terms of fractals and raids, I'm not sure, so if you do have any information on those, please feel free to comment down below, because it's the sort of thing that's hard for me to confirm since I have both expansions. I know for a fact that raids, you need to access a specific place in order to enter them, much like dungeons, so I suspect you need the specific expansion in order to access some specific raids. So in terms of purchasing the expansions, you can buy both expansions or buy them separately. There is obviously the question of, if you have only one expansion, you will be missing on the content of the other expansion. So if you buy the Path of Fire expansion only, you will be missing the content of the Heart of Thorns expansion, and vice versa. So keep an eye out on that, and if you prefer a specific expansion, do buy that specific expansion that suits you best. However, there's also the option of buying them together for a cheaper price, so keep an eye on that as well in case that suits you. I personally recommend you playing the game up to level 80 if you're new to the game, because that will give you an idea whether you do enjoy this game or not, and it will give you the skill you require to play your profession at a higher level, because you have gone through all the levels, playing through with it and getting familiar with your abilities, how you're meant to be playing, the dodging mechanics, and so on and so forth. So if you do play the original game first, you also get the perk that it's free, so then by the time you reach level 80, you can be sure whether you want to invest your money on an expansion or another. In terms of buying the expansions, I really recommend buying both of them, because you will be missing out on some content if you only buy one of them. However, it's really up to you whether you want to invest on one of them or the other, because obviously you might not have the money or something of the sort. So it's up to you to choose your favorite one. And this is one of the reasons I made this video, is to try and help out people who are a bit unsure of what the differences are between Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire. And I hope this was very useful. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Drop a like down in the video if you enjoyed it. If you drop a dislike, make sure you comment down below why, so I can improve for future videos. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so you can watch new videos coming out, or even the streams that I make on Path of Fire and Heart of Thorns. And yeah, thank you very much for joining. I hope that you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.